Thank you all for joining for today's session. Like you introduced, I'll be going over the things that you need to know if you're interested in becoming a business analyst or a role in a similar field. I want to share what I have done to become one and tips that will be useful when you're interviewing in a big tech company. So I want to start off by going over my professional career. You'll be glad to hear that I did not go to engineering school. I don't have a CS major. I started off my career in marketing. I studied with a branding marketing specialist. I loved being in a marketing field. You really get to input your ideas and be close to your customers. I love my job, and this was a company that was in Fortune 500, health and beauty company. They still did a very traditional marketing back then, which means that they were focused on qualitative research. Most decisions were made by gut feeling, by the upper leadership. And that mechanism really frustrated me a lot, not following what the data shows. And I decided to do something that is more related to data. So I moved to a German healthcare company where I was a CRO manager. This stands for Conversion Rate Optimization Manager. And this isn't a job title that's widely known, so I could give a little more detail on it. So it is basically similar to marketing analyst. I ran A/B testing on landing pages where the conversion rate happens. So I had to come up with ideas of how I can improve the landing pages in order to ultimately improve conversion rates. And here, when I say conversion rates, it could be metrics like click rate, sales conversion, session duration, things like that. And I had to run the test for a period of time and analyze why this test is working or not, and how to iterate the testings. I had a lot of fun in this role, but it was a job where you constantly have to be creative with the ideas you want to test. And since it was a healthcare company, there are a lot of restrictions on the ads and the wordings, the testings that we could do. So this is when I started to think what I could do in my next step moving forward in my career. And that's when I decided to keep that I wanted to keep my career in data. So I do my master's in data analytics. I moved to United States. That was in 2023, very recent. I did my master's in California. And while I was doing my master's, I had a chance to work with a healthcare company as a practicum project. And I helped them build different dashboards using Tableau, identify new metrics that could optimize their operation. This is actually my first actual gig, you would say, in data, looking at metrics, communicating with the stakeholders on what metrics needs to be created, and building visualizations. And yeah, after I graduated from my master's, I landed a job as a business analyst in one of the so-called FAANG big tech company. And I've been working as a business analyst for 4 to 5 months so far. So I want to talk about how you can build your resume and few tips on interviews as well. I don't want to say this is the set in stone answer for you to do because I know everyone has a different skill set and experience. I'm going to go through the most common questions that I got when I was transitioning my role as a data analyst. So I brought a subset of my resume, and these are the skills that I have listed. I know those are a lot. I tried to put a lot of skills as possible that was aligning with the job description. And you would have a question, does this all matter? Are these skills a must, a mandatory to become an analyst? The answer is no. You just have to have a basic skills, and those are SQL, any experience that could be A/B testing, EDA, statistical analysis, or and visualization skills like in Tableau, Adobe Analytics, and Salesforce. And if you have an experience in project management, I put this because I had experience in this, and this is not a must if you want to become a business analyst, but it's good to have. Your experience in Jira or Asana, it could be a plus while working in a big tech. And when I say analytical skills here, I mean any data related experience you might have. You don't really have to have an experience dealing with large uh, data. In my case, I only dealt with data at an Excel level, which is maximum like 10K rows. And this is not considered a large data set, but I leveraged that experience in my interviews, and they really liked the fact that I had experience in A/B testing. So if you have any skills that you could leverage, it's worth mentioning in your resume or in your interviews. So the next question you might have here is where do you build the skills and how do you build the skills? And first thing I think is very important is you need to assess where you are in a data career. Do you study or work where you can leverage your data experience? For example, are you in a data-oriented field like something analyst, or are you transitioning to a whole different field from a non-data-oriented role? Like maybe you come from a marketing, maybe you come from sales or a teacher, something like that. You have to take a different approach depending on where you are. If you're a data-oriented role, for example, market research analyst looking for a data analyst role in tech field, you'd already have experience in analytics, but maybe not in SQL. Couple of things that you could start is networking, building narrative on why you want to transition, and building a stronger portfolio doing a business relevant project. And here by networking, yes, it also means building connections for referrals if you're looking for a job in the United States. But referrals do not guarantee you a job anymore. I think everyone who's looking for a job in the United States knows this by now. So here by networking, I also mean reaching out to people in the field to learn how things actually work, like how you're doing, how you're attending this session because you want to know what BAs actually do. Personally, what I did was I wanted to know how they utilize SQL. Yes, I've learned in school, I've competed in hackathon, but the challenges people face using SQL at work requires more understanding of business context dealing with large data set. You really need to know how to cook your raw data. So, for example, I currently work with customer email performance data. And I'm just given with raw data. It's not a dashboard that I need to build. It's just raw data that I need to come up with new metrics. And this is something that you want to clarify with your PM to how to improve your analysis framework. And in order to do that, you really need to know how people actually deal using SQL at work. And if you don't have a business understanding, that's going to be hard for you. So going back to the examples I gave, my PM wanted to know how we can improve an engagement plan. That is a very vague question. What do you mean by engagement plan? You have a raw data that are millions of rows. They have different channels. So questions that you want to ask will be, what channels do you want to focus? Is it email, event, session? And what do you mean by engagement plan? Do you want to see email performance rate, like open rate or click rate, or do you want to see sales conversion rate? So these are the questions that you want to clarify as a BA with your product manager. And this comes out when you have a enough business context by talking to people in the field. Um, and if you're in a non-data oriented role, if you're coming from marketing associate like me, You can always start with free portfolio tutorials by building more relevant experience. That is very important here. Like you can look for any internship, entry-level job, or free volunteer work. You can build experience with real companies. Or you could also look for internal transfer if you're already working and your company has roles that are more related to data. I know a lot of BAs in my team who come from sales and they have internally transferred and they're building their skill as a BA. So that's something that you can do if you come from non-data background. Um, and I want to continue with if you are having an interview in a near date, some of the interview questions that I got very commonly, I want to share those with you and how you can prepare your answers. I have applied more than 800 jobs, and then the number of interviews I got was around 20. So these are the very common questions that I had while interviewing some of the tech companies. So tell me about yourself is the most common questions that you will get. You will always get this question no matter what role that you're in. And this is important because this is where your hiring manager sees you for the first time. You want to make sure you're the person for the role. And in order to do that, you have to make sure you read the job description. You want to identify the key skills, tools, and responsibilities the company is looking for, and then tailor your answer to highlight the most relevant experience you have. So this is the actual job description of my current role, a portion of it. So the things I highlighted here is data analytics and process optimization, enhanced lead flow process, work in a large complex data, collaboration, scaling up business solutions. So these are the things that I highlighted, and I structured my tell me about your answer question based on the job description. Yeah. So you want to structure your answer in three parts: your background, your transition to data and analytics, and your current focus and why you're excited about this role. I haven't brushed up this tell me about yourself answer for a long time, but yeah, it has everything that's needed to answer tell me about yourself. So what I did here basically is I said I have analyzed performance metrics, I have experience in improving customer experience, and that is highlighting the experience that was mentioned in the job description. You can always use the exact same wordings that are mentioned in job description, so that your interviews know that you have the experience for the role. Um, I also added some details on why I want to work in tech and as a data analyst because they could see that in my resume that I don't come from a tech background or I'm not an engineering student. So that's a little bit that I wanted to introduce about myself to the interviewer. So I added that. And lastly, I've also added another set of skills that this role was looking for, building dashboard to optimize the operational process, which is basically what all data analyst role is looking for. So I added that bit for my to my answer. Um, and the other behavioral questions, you're gonna get a lot of behavioral questions, but the most common question I got for me was, tell me about a time you analyzed a customer data set. You always want to structure your answer in STAR method. This is widely known, and there's a reason for that because you want to keep your answers between 5 to 7 minutes. You don't want to share too much details because you want to keep room for your interviewers to ask you follow-up questions. I'm going to talk about that more in later, but going over my example of tell me about a time you analyze the customer data set. I mentioned what data I was working on, which was the lead funnel. I talk about the problems that we had. Our lead funnel was one size fits all, and it needed a personalization, customization. And I mentioned the problem in numbers. It was leading to high drop-off rate, which was 50%. And what I did was I wanted to improve engagements by giving a tailored funnel based on customer experience. So that was my understanding of the problems that was mentioned in the situation. And then I go ahead and explain what the actions were to do this and what the result was. And when answering these behavioral questions, like I said, do not exceed more than 7 minutes. I think even 7 minutes is too long. Too much detail will confuse your interviewers or they might lose interest. These people are taking time out of their day and they want to engage in this interview. So you don't, the last thing you want to do is make them lose interest in the interviews. The second thing would be give results in numbers and metrics. This is not only to deliver impact clearly, but also to let them know that you have understanding of business metrics that you have experience in. I've talked about business metrics multiple times so far, and there's a reason for it. Building metrics or defining metrics is very important as a BA because sometimes your product manager doesn't know what they want to look at. You are given with raw data, you have to come up with metrics, how to define them sometimes, and give the final data to your stakeholders. So if you have more understandings of the business context and how to come up with these metrics, it will be easier for you to do the job. So it's important that you give results in numbers and metrics, just how you will be doing that to your product manager when you get the job. The last one would be give them room for follow-up questions and prepare for them. And this is linked to the first one. When I say do not share too much detail, you have to give them room for follow-up questions because they're going to come up with follow-up questions. And it's their job for them to engage with you constantly. So prepare what the follow-up questions would be and thoroughly prepare for them so that it looks like you know what you're talking about. And you can practice this with your friends. What I did was I timed it and I practiced with my friends. I looked for this site where you can live interview with a random person. I think you can just look it up on Google. It will show you a lot of sites where you can just randomly talk to people who are interviewing for tech field, and they will just ask questions and you have to answer them, and you ask them questions and they have to answer them. So it's very good practice for you to be in the interview environment that makes you really uncomfortable, so that when you actually interview with your hiring manager in later onwards, it will make you yourself easier to come up with answers, and you're comfortable with that with the surrounding of having an interview. Lastly would be culture fit questions. And this may not seem like an important part, culture fit, but they're very important because they want to see if you can adjust fast and stay agile at their company. If you're targeting for big tech companies, most of them have strong culture within themselves. I have realized that the company that I'm working at has very, very weird culture. And I realized that some of the questions that they ask, they had a reason for that because they wanted to see if I could fit in their culture. So they want to test that if you are one of us and if we share the same values. So, a few of the culture fit questions will be, tell me about a time you went out of scope. How do you stay up to date with industry trends? And tell me about a time you strongly disagreed with your manager on something. And for the culture fit questions, you want to see what the interviewer is really trying to assess. So tell me about a time you went out of scope. They're really asking, are you a team player who goes beyond your defined responsibilities? When I got these questions, I did have like two examples where I was doing a job that was completely out of my scope, and they actually really liked that. They liked that I was passionate enough, that I was a team player enough to help others. And I realized why that was important because the company I work with, that is, we need to be very collaborative, especially if you're a BA. You face challenges like your query is not working, your query is so slow. So you do have to reach out to your team members, maybe engineers in your team, if how we can optimize this query. So you have to be a person who's willing to help and who's willing to ask for help. So this was one of the questions that I got during my current company's interview. The second one, how do you stay up to date with industry trends? This one, they're asking if you're really interested in this job or do you take initiative in improving your skills? Um, I was caught off guard when I got this question because I did not know that they'll be asking this question, but they did. And what I could think about is I saw this post on LinkedIn that was telling me how to optimize your SQL query. So I remembered that, thank God, and I gave them the example of that. And the interviewer really liked it because it was a topic that he asked to the interviewee at the previous interviews. So that worked out really well for me. One of the things that I did while I was preparing for interviews was I made sure that my social media was filled with data, any data related contents. For Instagram, I followed a lot of people who gave up tech interview tips. For LinkedIn, I followed a lot of people who were sharing SQL query tips, and I try to make it really fun. And also, I try to surround with those contents, especially because I haven't had a job in the United States. So I wasn't really familiar with their culture, in the company culture. So I made sure I know how to answer certain questions in a certain way because it's very different from the interviews that I had experienced back in Korea. So that's one of the things that I did. And the last cultural fit question that I wanted to share was, tell me about a time when you strongly disagreed with your manager. And I think this is very common that you will get in every interviews, even if it's not tech role. This is basically asking, how do you handle conflicts professionally? Are you open to feedback and willing to compromise? And I think I understand why this is an important question if you're interviewing for a BA, because your stakeholders is basically your product manager. And because they don't know the data um, in detail, and you're the one who knows data in detail, sometimes it's very hard to convince them when there's not enough data or where there's no data that they want to see. Or your PM might not have a good understanding of what metrics they want to see. So a lot of conflicts actually happen between you and your stakeholders, and they want to see how you can deal the conflicts in these situations. So that was one of the questions. Um, Lastly, I want to share what I actually do as a business analyst. I said this is a day of business analyst, and I put it as morning, afternoon, and late afternoon. But no, I cannot do this in a day. I just structured in this way so that it's easier for you to kind of picture what are the things that business analysts actually do. So one of the things that we do is daily stand-up or team meeting. This is where you sync up with your stakeholders, which are mostly product managers or engineering teams, if you have them as a stakeholders, to kind of share updates on what you're working on right now. And try to check if there's any changes in the priority of the work, if some tasks should be deprioritized. It's basically a status update. The second thing that you would do is data extraction. Um, 70%, I think, of a job as a business analyst is writing queries, pulling data. That's all you do, honestly. And I spend a lot of time pulling data from our warehouse, but this is assuming that we already know which table we need to use. Sometimes, because it's such a big company, they have so many teams, they have so many projects. There are tables that people don't know that it exists. So sometimes I have to find the right point of contact to see if this table is the right table um, that needs to be used, or if there's additional tables that I need to know. Before becoming a business analyst, I thought everything would be kind of fed to you. You would know what tables to be used, but no. Um, Identifying the right point of contact is also important. You really have to understand the business structure. Any of the new business that your company has that you're not aware of. I could give example of my current project. So I'm working on analyzing email performance data, and I've recently discovered that we do have an AI tool that prioritizes what email they want to send to a specific user group. I didn't know that that existed, so I didn't include that to my analysis. But now I know that, so my analysis becomes more detailed and more broad. So things like this happens. So you would have to really understand the whole company structure as well. That was hard for me because I recently joined the company. But that could be one of the challenges that you might face when you join a company. So for me to understand this, I usually navigate through internal documentation. We have an internal wiki, but sometimes it's just hard to look for information that you don't know because you basically don't know if it exists or not. So those are one of the challenges. The other thing that you would be doing as a BA would be ad hoc requests. Sometimes they will request, oh, I want to see this data, very quickly. You don't have to like build a dashboard that doesn't go under ad hoc requests, but they just want to see some numbers. That's something that you could be doing. Another thing would be data cleaning and transformation. If you got a new data set, if you identified a new data set that should be included in your analysis, data cleaning is something that you have to go through. It's a large data set, so you have to identify which field that are absolutely needed because in most cases you'll be joining multiple tables and you don't want to extract all the fields in all the tables. So you need to do a data discovery to the new tables and see which of the fields that are necessary for your analysis and how you join multiple tables at once. Um, and also after you find the new tables, you would obviously do a EDA unless it's all already cleaned by other person or already deduped by other person. You have to really going to understand what are the trends that you can see in this table, how you can use this table, and also check if there is performance gaps. By this, I mean if the numbers in this table and the numbers in the other table that I was using, do they match? Do they map? If not, you have to check why they are not mapping or why the numbers are not matching. So that's one thing that I go through when I find a new data set. After you finish your analysis, you do a business case development. This is done parallelly while you do an analysis. You want to present the findings in a format which could be either document or a dashboard. That depends on what your stakeholders want. And then you want to get feedback from your team first and the stakeholders. If it's a critical feedback, you would incorporate the changes to your analysis framework and refine the insights based on what your stakeholders are looking for. Um, so yeah, that was it for my part.